my name is Beck and welcome to a list of books that I thought would fit my reading taste, but it turns out that they didn't. So I thought I would love these, but it turns out I just really didn't vibe with them. The first one on my list is one that I started and finished recently, and that is A History of What Comes Next. I've just shared a vlog about this book where I don't go into any spoilers whatsoever. This is a novella by Sylvain Neuvel, and it's a sci-fi novella, which is why I thought I'd be interested. Plus, I've read other stuff by him in the past and I've really enjoyed it, like The Themis Files, which starts out with sleeping giants, and I've also really enjoyed his novella The Test. So I have read his longer form work, his series, and his novellas before, and I enjoyed those. And this is a combination of both. So A History of What Comes Next is a novella series. And I thought, well, I'm gonna love this. I'm gonna give it a 4 stars. It turns out I gave it a 2.5 stars. And it's about a girl named Nina and her mother, and they are regenerated from past generations of women that are tasked with effectively saving the world. They want to take mankind into space to help avoid global catastrophe and global warming and a bunch of issues like that. I think you get the gist that they're aliens, but it didn't really go into much sci-fi. It was very much historical fiction, and it talked about the space race. And while those things are interesting in general, the way that it conveyed the story, it didn't make a lot of sense with the characters, the plot, and the world building. I enjoyed different aspects of it, but I couldn't really get invested. It felt very slapdash to me, and I was a bit alienated by it and all of the things that the characters achieved. It felt like they would have been achieved anyway, whether these characters were involved in this historical story or not. So it took away some of the merit for me, and that's why I only gave it 2.5 stars. The next book is an adult fantasy book, and that is The Lies of Lokmora by Scott Lynch. This is a book that I thought I would love because so many people have read this and adored it. Plus, I just devour adult fantasy, and it was about a guy named Lokmora, and he is a thief and he does a lot of heists. And so I thought that I would really enjoy it because of the heist dynamic, because the main character seems like a rogue, and those are characters that generally I love. And there was also a camaraderie in it with a friendship, and I thought that would hook me as well. But when I was reading it, there was a lot of flashbacks in it that just took you out of the story, and I did read it on audiobook, so I think that partly contributed to me feeling disconnected, because I think I had to physically read it for it to sink in more. And I just didn't care about the characters and the relationships and the politics going on. While the story was happening, there would be a flashback and I just felt pulled away from it. And I think if I was reading it physically, that might have helped a little bit. And I do want to try and maybe revisit this in the future in a different format to see whether it was just the audiobook that threw me off. But the way that the story was set up and the way the flashbacks were set up, I saw the ending coming, and I don't like it when that happens because it just takes away my enjoyment. So I only gave it a 3 stars, and I wanted to give it a 4 or a 5. So that is why it was disappointing to me. It wasn't a bad book. It still got a 3, which is a decent rating, but I just wish for an adult fantasy, especially because they're a bit longer, that I was able to be invested, and that didn't happen. So again, just something that I didn't like. The next book I haven't actually even finished, and I gave up because of the writing style, and you'll understand when I say the title. It is The Hobbit, and I tried reading this and it was just so slow that I could not get into it. I'm not a classics person either, and I think that contributed to me just feeling very bored by the pace and by the way the characters encountered things in the book and then just went about their merry way. There wasn't a lot of tension or conflict for me, and the pace was just really slow, so I just put it down. I think I got a 3rd into it. Maybe that's being generous, but I definitely didn't continue this. I did like the movies, but they are supposed to be viewed, I think, as separate from the books because they just added so much other stuff in so that I could make them into a trilogy when The Hobbit is tiny. So I liked that film series. I didn't really love the book, and I think it was just down to the writing style and the pace. So didn't finish that one. Next is an adult sci-fi, and this was recommended to me by someone I really trust. So that combined with the fact that it was sci-fi, I thought I'm going to adore this. And again, I just gave it 3 stars. It is Salvation by Peter F. Hamilton, and this is a book that has multiple perspectives in it, which I thought would be dynamic and interesting, but I was bored by a lot of the perspectives in here, and a lot of the politics was very convoluted and complicated, which was interesting, but at the same time, there was a lot going on and I just didn't care. So I think that's why I gave it a 3. It felt like work to get through, and when I'm reading a book, it's my hobby and I don't want it to be work. So I I pushed through to the end and I gave it a 3. I liked pieces of it, but it was just a book that I couldn't get invested in because I didn't want to learn about so many different characters. So again, just a 3 stars. The next one is The Poppy War, which I've talked about before, and that is by R.F. Kuang. This is a book that did a complete 180 in the style and tone. So I picked it up thinking it was a magical school book, and then it turned into a war book, which is not unlikely considering the title, but the way it did that, it was a very big thematic shift with what I felt was not a lot of build up, and so it took things that had been set up in the first half and just kind of shafted them for new things in the second half. And it was supposed to be about this girl Rin who was trying to fight to get out of this opium dealing and into a school where she could learn tactics and basically become a scholar and a fighter away from what she has grown up learning, which is opium trade. So she wanted to change her life that way, and I loved the beginning with all the training montages and the school and how there was like a toxic conversation about learning and forcing yourself to perform when you just needed rest. So I liked aspects of the beginning and I thought it was going to be a 5 stars, but again I ended up just giving it a 3, and I don't think I'm going to finish the series because it just really let me down. I've only got 2 left. The next one is the Night Angel Trilogy by Brent Weeks. I love the Black Prism series, the Lightbringer series by him, one of my favorite series ever. However, I tried to read his Night Angel series ages ago and I just could not get into the narrative style, and I don't know if that's because it was a written work and I've consumed his books on audio with the Lightbringer series, or if it was just something that I wasn't interested in general. And I think I read about 20 pages or maybe less of the first Night Angel book and I just DNF'd it because it was just not vibing with my taste. So I thought I'd love it because fantasy again, and it starts out with a poor rebel living in the slums and he wants to make a different life for himself, and he's a thief and he doesn't want to be anymore. I thought it would be great because it starts out from basically nothing and they have to fight to gain power and ability and magic, but it just wasn't something that was palatable to me, unfortunately. So yeah, I DNF'd that trilogy. However, I loved the Lightbringer series. So Brent Weeks' newer stuff, really loved. His older work, not so much. And then last on this list is probably a surprise considering this is one of the series that I really like, and that is Every Heart a Doorway by Seanan McGuire. This is a series that captures the concept of going to a magical world and then coming back and having to reassimilate, kind of like the kids going to Narnia and then coming back. And I love the first book. I love most of the books in this series, but the second book, Down Among the Sticks and Bones, people either love it or they hate it, and I lean more towards that I really don't like it because I don't like Jack and Jill, the 2 characters that are introduced in the first book, and that is what Down Among the Sticks and Bones follows. I don't care about their world, I don't care about those characters, and so the fact that those characters had a lot of weight in the series, I just didn't care about them and I wanted it to move past them so that we could focus on other cool stuff that's happening around them, because there are such cool characters that happen around them, but I was just not interested in them. So that is the last book on this list. All of these are pretty much fantasy or sci-fi that I thought I would adore, but I just unfortunately didn't. So down below in the comments, let me know if there was a book that you thought would live up to your expectations, but it just didn't. I would love to hear, but thank you so much for watching this video. I will chat to you in the comments and I'll see you in my next one. Bye.